So I want to talk today about the thing that will allow you to create infinite amounts of money. It's sales, right? That's what we're here. This is a sales show. But there's some things that you need to understand if you want to be successful in sales and great, to get great. These are actually really simple things, but most people miss on all three of them. They don't even do one great. They don't even do one average. In most cases, they do none of them, and they wonder why they're not making any money. So I want to do a show today on how to get great at sales, okay? This is, I want to start by saying two things. This is super important. If you want to make more money in sales, then you must understand this one thing, this one concept. There are only two ways as a salesperson to make more money. There's only two. Okay? Super basic principle of sales. There's only two ways you can make more money as a salesperson. Number one, activity, or number two, improvement or skill. So this is a really important concept to understand because you actually have control over how much money you make in sales. And you don't even have to get better at what you do to make more money. You just have to take more action. This is the simplest way to increase your income in sales. Is just make more calls, knock on more doors, send more proposals, do more demos, make more follow-up calls. This is the easiest way. 99% of people have the ability, the access, and the wherewithal to be able to increase their activity. 10 more calls a day will make a positive impact on your paycheck over the course of a year, probably. 50 more calls a day, you're probably going to start seeing a monthly impact. And if you can add 100 calls a day to what you're doing right now, then every single day you're going to be seeing more impact. So the more activity you take, the closer the result ends up coming. So let's say, for example, you're making completely stone cold calls. You make 100 calls a day and you convert 2 of those people to appointments, right? So that is a statistic that is for every 100 calls, you make 2 appointments, okay? If you increase 100 calls to 110 calls, you're probably not going to see an added appointment, right? In fact, until you get to 150 calls added based on the numbers, you're not going to see that third appointment. So the more activity you take, the closer you pull the result to being experienced that day, okay? The second way to improve your income, to increase your income, to make more money, is to just simply get better. Because at some point, you can't make more calls, right? You reach a point where I can physically not talk more than 8 hours a day. That gives me 15 minutes for lunch. That gives me 12 minutes throughout the day for 2 pee breaks. That means that I'm coming in at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm staying till 7 o'clock at night because I got some planning and some organization activities that I have to do when I'm done calling, whatever the case may be. You reach a point where you can't physically take more activity. So then the only lever that you have to pull then at that point is just you have to develop more skill. You have to make more impact on the calls that you have. Want to improve your money incrementally, exponentially, you want to double up, do both. Improvement of skill takes longer than making more calls. So I wanted to go over this because this is really important for you to understand. You are in control of both of these. The skill development piece takes a little bit longer. Activity is something that you can start banging on today. Super important. You're in control of this. You can do this one right here. You can do the activity piece. You can get started on that today. But just know that you have to be able to increase your activity to levels where you can pull the result forward so that you can start experiencing some of the positive impact of that. So that is kind of the preface for this whole call, because you can make more money in sales without being a genius if you just simply work more. And I know that sounds simple, but if it's simple, you should be doing it already. So how to get great at sales. Number one, there's 3 things I'm going to cover. Number one, you must know your numbers. You've got to know this. If you don't know your numbers, you're going to be completely blind. If you don't know your numbers, you're constantly going to be in mystery. If you don't know your numbers, you're constantly going to be wondering how to improve things, how to get better at something, and you're going to have zero control over it. It's going to be disappointing. You're probably going to lose confidence. You're probably going to lose motivation. And at some point, you will run out of purpose to fuel, because numbers tell you everything. Like you need to know how many calls you make in a day. You need to know how many leads you get in a day. You need to know your conversion on leads to appointments, to demos, to deals. You need to know, the numbers tell you everything. Numbers don't lie. Because most salespeople, they do this. They're up and down on a roller coaster. We're probably emotionally unstable to some degree. That's how we're able to turn on this crazy personality on a phone call and then go somewhere else immediately after the call, become some completely different person. The great salespeople are always just a little all over the place. But the numbers are the thing that you have at the foundation and the core that will tell you everything you need to know about how to actually make more money. They tell you the story about where you need to put your time and attention. Minimum, it will give you certainty. The amount of confidence. Maybe this is the same for you, but this is how it is for me. If you tell me, hey, go clean up the garage with a broom, and you don't tell me how big the garage is, you don't tell me how dirty it is, you don't tell me how long it takes the average person to clean the garage. If you give me no data, my confidence and certainty is really low, right? And then what happens is I start coming up with my own expectations of something that I don't even understand because there's no data behind it, right? And then when I get in there, I see this massive freaking garage, dust piled that thick. They gave me a little kitchen broom rather than a push broom. And then I start getting overwhelmed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever, right? There's all these things start happening because expectations aren't in line with what I actually encounter. The flip side of that is, hey, look, we're going to give you this kitchen broom. We're going to put you in a warehouse. It's pretty dirty. The dust is about that thick. It's going to take you 2.5 days to get it done. Going in, I have so much more confidence and certainty because the expectations are in line, they're in place. I believe most people operate better when they have full transparency. I believe most people operate with more confidence when they know exactly how many times they have to swing the axe to get the tree to fall down. It eliminates the mystery. Right? There's a lot of things that go on in your head when you're selling. When's the customer, is this the call that's going to work? Is this the call that's going to be my commission? Is this the customer that's going to say yes? Did they like it? Did they not like it? There's so many things that you start going around and around in your head that create uncertainty, and they create you to lose confidence. You don't sell anything for 4 or 5 or 6 days. Everybody else is selling stuff. Then you're looking around going, dude, why am I even here? I suck at this. Even though last month you were the #1 salesperson, now you're coming around. It's halfway through the month. You haven't sold anything yet. And now you get all these freaking ideas going around in your head, right? And you become more emotional rather than logical, okay? Numbers are important because it allows you to make logic-based decisions about the thing that you do every day. So you track how many calls you make. You track your conversion rates. You track how many leads you have. You track your sales cycle. How long does your average sales cycle take? When you know all these things, it gives you a lot of confidence. Then, once you know these baseline numbers, you can actually play with what I showed you on the previous screen, which is the activity. You can start turning that dial. So if you do all these if you track all these numbers for 30 days and you get down to the point where you're like, for every 1,340 calls, I get a deal. If you work all the math out and you figure out closing rates and all that stuff, you get down to this point. For every 1,300 calls, I get one deal. This would be a really important number to know, would you agree? Because this number holds the key to getting a deal. Now, if I go, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to either number one, because what we talked about in the beginning is how do I make more calls? So increase the number of calls. Or number two, I'm going to try to figure out how to get this done in 1,000 calls. That way I don't have to make any more phone calls. I just have to get better on the call by 30%. And now 1,000 calls gets me a deal rather than 1,300, which means that if I make, let's see, 4 deals under old math means I got to make 5,200 calls. And 4 deals under the new math means I only have to make 4,000 calls. So that same 5,000 calls gets me 5 deals. It gets me an extra deal. So my point of showing you all that, and hopefully that wasn't too confusing, my point of showing you all that is the numbers are the most important thing for you because they give you clarity and confidence on everything that you have to do when you show up every day, and you can actually back into how do I make more money? If you're making 80 grand and you want to get to 100 grand, if you're making 100 grand, you want to get to 200 grand. It will be contained through activity or skill development. But at the root of it, you have to know your numbers, number one. Number two, most important thing, is you have to have targets. See, once I know the numbers, now I can start backing into targets. So now I can set the target out there and go, I need to make 300 calls today. It's better to show up every day knowing exactly how many calls you need to make to hit your money target than showing up and not having a target and not knowing how many calls. Would you agree? It gives you that stake in the ground to say, hey, I've got some confidence in this. This is the thing that I'm showing up and doing today. So you need to figure out what your daily targets are, your weekly targets, and your monthly targets. Activity targets, deal targets, appointment targets, demo targets, lead targets, referral targets, contract value targets, contract term targets. Like, you need to come up with targets for everything that you do because it gives you something that's real to chase. No targets, no focus. No targets, no push. No targets, no urgency. And then you need to keep yourself accountable to these targets. At the end of the day, if you have daily targets, you're like, hey, I was supposed to make 300 calls. How many did I make? I made 200. Ooh, man, I was off by 100. What happened? See, the target gives me something to hold myself accountable to, so at the end of the day, I can go, did I get closer to my goal today or not? So I was off by 100 calls because I did 6 demos today, and I wasn't able to go hammer time like I normally do. But instead of doing 2 demos, which was my target, I did 6 demos. Okay, so now the numbers are starting to tell me a story. Targets are important. You cannot operate without targets. You have to have income targets. You have to have exercise targets. Like, you literally, targets in your life give you something to actually reach for and hold yourself accountable to. If there's no targets, there can't be any accountability. And I think you all agree that accountability is probably a good thing, right? It's a good thing because it's the thing that creates the doingness of a goal or a target or an action. It's like the accountability is, did you do it or not? And if you did do it, did you fall short? If you didn't do it, why did you not do it? Right? Like, it gives you the ability to actually start saying, I'm going to do something. So, how to get great at sales. Number 1, you got to know your numbers. Numbers tell you everything. Numbers aren't emotional. Numbers don't lie. Number 2, you got to have targets every day so you can show up and lean into something. And at the end of the day, you have a measurement to keep yourself accountable to go, am I getting closer to the money that I want or not? And then number 3, cannot get away from this. If you want to be great, you got to train. You got to consume content. Podcasts, your mic is hot over there. Podcasts like this are great for content, but this isn't training. Like, this is information. Probably a little bit more training in this than most because we're a training company. That's just what we do. Like Cardone University, for example. Cardone University is a platform that was built so people could come in, they could get 3-minute segments of training, very focused, no additional noise. It's the same thing, the same way every time. That's an important component of something to be considered training, is it has to have the element of consistency in it. This pen is going to be the same today as it is tomorrow. It's consistent. This jet right here is not going to change overnight. Like, there's something stable. See, information is what I'm delivering right now. I couldn't come and deliver this same exact show tomorrow. Probably get close, but there's some things that I'm just going to miss. If Steve Spray from my team had to come in here and I just said, hey, talk to him about how to get great at sales, he would probably come up with something different than this. So you have to have, for training to be effective, it has to be consistent, right? So you have to look at, how can I get a book, even a book like this book right here. It's the same book every time you read it, right? It has the element of consistency, because consistency leads to duplication and the ability to repeat something or replicate it. So you got to have that element in place. It needs to be something that's accessible, something that you can get when you need it. Like these are all the reasons why we built Cardone University. Like when we were selling CDs, we were selling DVD programs. That was what I sold. I sold $10,000 DVD sets when I first started working for Grant. When we transitioned into this online thing, we were thinking, okay, what does training need to have to be effective? It needs to be consistent. Today, in today's day and age, we believed it needed to be video rather than text. It needed to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that people, if they did want to train, they actually could get it when they wanted it. They didn't have to go to a manager or something like that. So we put this idea of hey, if we want to have a solid training product, what does it need to be? We came up with Cardone University. Cardone University is a program that will change your game. It changed my game. I got 26 salespeople in the back. They train on it every single day. That is what trains them. Grant does not train them. I do not train them. Todd does not train them. Cardone University trains them. These are guys, in some cases, didn't go to college. They're making middle six figures back here. They're freaking crushing it. 3, 4, 5, 600,000 bucks a year, because we teach them skills and we help them, we force them to increase their activity. And when you do both those things, you get overpaid. Force skill development, force more activity, they get overpaid, meaning they're going to make more than they would without us forcing those things on them. And that's how we grow our team here.